All right, we're back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. Hope you had a good weekend. Nick Beres here, and the lines are open, 737-7587. We're going to be talking estate planning with Tim Takacs. This is what's called the tap dance. We're waiting right now. Tim, again, always very prompt, but he's an elder law attorney, and he's running a little bit late. Should be here any moment, but if you have some questions you want to get on the horn first, we can discuss that and get that going, because usually it gets busy later in the show. But let me throw a few other things out there. The bottom line on this is we're getting close to the end of the year. There was a big story in the Tennessee this past weekend. Your thoughts on this, how much this affects you and what it has to do with elder law and getting estate planning and financing in place, especially if you're on a fixed income. All of the cuts that the state is proposing right now and what the governor has called for. And one of the hardest hit areas now is going to be TennCare. There are going to be a lot of people right now still struggling to make money or to pay for health care. We all know about Social Security, the very small cost of living increase that's in place. How do you get by? How do you set monies aside? Those types of things. We can talk about that with you this morning as we see the governor getting ready to hear from the legislature on exactly how much money they're going to be cutting from everything. And look, Tim just walked in. Thank goodness. Come on up, big fella. I mean, I would ordinarily be angry with him, but the bottom line is Tim is always on time, and I have to be truthful with you. Over the years when I've come in before, every once in a while, I always leave early. Mary Elena leaves early to get here as well, and sometimes traffic just kills you. And so Tim will be here. So now the number, 737-7587. We're framing up the camera as we speak. Mary Elena's running back there to hit the screen, and then we'll have Tim up with me, and I can stop this tap dance. Because, Tim, I've got to be honest with you. When it comes to any subject that I'm talking about, I can ramble on about a lot of things, but when we're talking about elder care, that's a little trickier. And there we go. Tim Takacs, good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
Someone had a wreck, didn't they?
Yes, they did, and
It happens to
at
the
least
best
I
of us,
got
my
to
friend.
work, and they didn't, bless their hearts, and so
Look, I've been there, my friend, and thank you for making it.
you're welcome. Thank you for
Tap dancing.
Great. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I set the
I guess
table.
you were reading the news, and
Well, no, I didn't go to that. I tried to check it. I talked about the different things that, as always, you can, take calls from this morning. And the number 737-7587. I'm just curious, is there anything that you get or hear more from your clients about near the end of the year? Right now, do people at this point make his resolutions coming up thinking more about, setting up wills? And they think, okay, New Year, time to finally do my will, or what kind, anything that they pay
what we do
attention
is
to?
we do get that. We do get people that are interested. They're interested in coming in and kind of like getting their ducks in the row.
Right. Just because the end of the year.
Just because they're end of the year, right? What we also get is that right around this time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we have people that are coming into the office who maybe they have seen family members at Thanksgiving. The Christmas holidays start. They start seeing more relatives, and they start seeing things.
Sure.
So that's good.
Meaning that all for the first, it's kind of like, I was talking about that before you got here, because that's one of the more interesting things that we've discussed in the past, is when family members all of a sudden see mom, dad, the aunt or something, beginning to slip a bit and recognizing that they need help before they recognize it themselves. And you're right. Thanksgiving, maybe that's the first time you've seen certain family members all year long. That time's passed, and all of a sudden they're not the way you remembered them. They may need a little help, but they're not ready to acknowledge it.
That's right.
So how do you handle that when someone comes in? Because they don't want to lose control. They think they're fine.
Exactly. Yeah. For one thing is that, and I can just think about a case that we had. I mean, literally, that just came in last week.
Good.
Where a young woman comes in. She's, her grandmother is 76, and this young woman, she's like probably in her 30s, very clearly, and so granddaughter comes in with grandmother and says, okay, we need to plan. And I says, well, why are you here, to the granddaughter? And she goes, well, I don't know anything.
Sounds like me.
Yes, I don't know anything. And I said, okay. So, the story then becomes is that grandmother who's there, she lives by herself. She apparently is somewhat of a hoarder.
All right.
We're talking about someone who is actually, needless to say, not married, divorced, been divorced for many, many years. Her children are not involved, all that sort of thing, and so the granddaughter comes in and going, I don't know what to do, I need help. and the grandmother says, well, I guess I'm here because because of my Alzheimer's disease. Huh. But it's pretty clear after having a conversation for 10 or 15 minutes.
They both came in together.
They both came in together.
All right.
That the client, meaning the older person, grandma, decided, she just really wasn't interested in doing much planning.
Want to come there and do the planning. Okay.
Right.
All
She's not really interested. So what I was able to do is I suggested to, the elder, I said, well, why don't we do, they couldn't even find her powers of attorney, and apparently she has them. So I says, well, why don't we do those while you're here?
Mm-hmm. All right.
So when I stepped out of the room, and one of my elder care coordinators, Carol Ann, was continuing the conversation. So I drafted the powers of attorney. I went back into the office, and the elder, she signed them. We talked a little bit more, and on the way out, I suggested to the granddaughter, why don't you call? Or why don't we go ahead and set up another appointment for just you to come in, so that we can do some planning, because a lot of times that's the way it works.
And you're able to do that now because the grandmother signed the power of attorney, which allows her granddaughter.
Exactly.
And just so we're clear, and that allows her granddaughter to do what? The power of attorney.
Basically, to plan for how she, because mostly what the granddaughter was concerned about is that I know things are bad and they're going to get worse.
Okay.
And I don't want to be in a crisis, because I mean, when there's a crisis, okay, you call 911 and you hope for the best.
Yeah, so she's good for her. And you're of the sense, too, that this is not someone who's going after grandma's assets. Sometimes you see.
Well, they don't come into my office if that's what they're trying to do.
Right. She was, I really respect this woman for coming in and saying, with the power of attorney, this allows her to make some decisions to help make things better for her grandma.
Right.
So now that she has that, she can come back, and the grandmother doesn't really have to worry about it.
She's been, she's the grandmother. She's been, she's had the granddaughter help her with her finances. Been on her bank accounts and whatnot. So, I mean, if she wanted to steal money, but at the same time, she's getting to the point where she's starting to lose things, where she doesn't know where things were. I say, well, okay, you have money in this account. Well, yes, I've got about this amount of money, and then she mentioned I've got some other money over there, and I said, well, how much do you have over there? And then that was like the first time she sort of, I guess you call blown her cover.
Yeah, where
she just basically said, I don't know how much I have.
Okay.
Because that's part of it is that when and we, unfortunately, many of us are going to get to that where we try to sort of cover up our shortcomings, because it's. You don't want to walk around.
Should she? I mean, I don't always know exactly how much I have.
Well, then we need to start thinking about you. Then
I don't. Seriously, I mean, how much do you have in your bank account? I mean, I know I'm not overdrawn. I balance my bank account, but I don't know off the top of my head what's in my 401k.
Are you still married?
Yeah, I do know that.
We'll see now. I'll bet you somebody in your household knows.
Well, she's probably a little more on the ball than me. All right, let's
and I know how that works too. Yes.
Thankfully so. Let's go to Charlie. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hey, Charlie. How can we help you, my friend?
The reason I'm calling is I want to find out, do I need a will? I own a pickup truck, which is paid for $77.
All right.
2 guitars and an old dog, and I want to give it all to my granddaughter.
Okay.
I have no will.
And that's basically your assets. Beyond that, you live day to day. You don't have a home or something that you really
no
property?
House, no bank. Well, do you have a bank account, Charlie?
No, I have 2 debit cards. One's a VA and one's Social Security.
Okay.
And I live on that month to month and give money to my grandkids every month. I live in an apartment. I'm so blessed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so you want to leave it all to who?
Yeah. It sounds like you're not burdened by things.
No. And you don't have a lot of debt either, do you?
No, sir.
Good for you. Man, well, that's great. All right. So not a huge estate, but he has plans on where he wants his estate to go.
Okay.
What do you think?
So
does he need one?
Yes. Probably. Well, what I would suggest that what Charlie do.
Altamont.
Okay. Is that what you said?
Altamont.
Okay. Well, be careful about that.
All right.
All right. Now, what you see, that's we'll explain that.
I talked about that before you got here.
Okay,
yes.
Good. All right. Well, I think what Charlie, should be looking at is to make sure that he documents who gets his stuff.
Okay.
Because people tend to, if they get into disputes about things, often it's about the stuff.
Now, let's just assume here, and I'm guessing with Charlie, I don't know there'll be a ton of disputes over what he has to give. And in fact, someone may not want his old dog, even though I'm guessing she'll like it and take it in. But what does he need to do? And, in a nutshell, tell him, okay, where does he go? And what can he do to make it, I'm guessing for someone like him, cost effective?
Right. Well, for one is that we don't want him to go visit a lawyer, because the likelihood is he's not really going to need to do that.
Okay.
All right. Now, but as long as he has something, and as long as he's here on this earth, he says, okay, Charlie, he says, I've got stuff, so I write it out on a piece of paper that says I give my 77 pickup to this person. I give my dog to this person. I give my books to this person. I give my furniture or whatever it is, and he can list that, and he can sign it and date it, and that's like the ultima.
And where does he put that after he does
basically
this?
What he wants to make sure is the person that needs to know where it is, he needs to tell that person where it is.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe it's in a desk drawer. Maybe and you've heard me say this before, you put it up, if you're worried about thieves or fires or whatever, you zip it up in a plastic bag, and you put it in your freezer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's smart. Yeah, okay.
Right. Now, probably the most important thing for Charlie is that he needs to make sure that he has powers of attorney in place.
So now, what is he?
So those are healthcare powers of attorney. One, apparently he's at the VA, or he's got.
He's a veteran.
He's a veteran. He might. The VA has a healthcare power of attorney document. He might consider using one of those.
Should some decisions have to be made if he's incapacitated,
yes,
or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing that we want, because mostly that's likely what are the kind of decisions that are going to need to be made for him, and he needs to make sure he designates his granddaughter or whoever it is that he wants, whoever he feels like he trusts to make those decisions if he's not able to make them himself.
Okay.
All right. So we go to the VA, talk to them. They probably have a power of attorney form. There's also the Tennessee Department of Health. You can get healthcare documents, online. If Charlie doesn't have a computer or something like that, he can go to the library, and see about, downloading a form, on the healthcare power of attorney. Durable, the financial powers of attorney are the same thing. You can often find those online too, or,
all right.
It's not necessarily something that we. I won't say needless to say, Nick, it's not something that I recommend people do, because often people don't necessarily always need to plan their own estate, because you never know what's going to work out until you're dead, and
then it's too late,
and then your heirs are going to curse you for not not investing in getting it done the right way. But in Charlie's case,
with what he has, he laid it on the line for us. That'll be good. Just do that, and that'll be the way it is.
Yeah.
All right.
It's really about what do you need to do to make sure that you don't leave a mess for somebody else.
I thought about you recently. I was reading John Grisham's new book, Gray Mountain, and I'm a big Grisham fan. Time to Kill, and all the other books he's written over the years. But this one deals with, among other things, it's always lawyers, a will and a challenge of a will, and the way the estate was set to go to the family, and then she decided those do nothing bad gooders or whatever. Don't get it, and she gave it all to a charity, and then how the challenge comes on, and legally, how they can drag things through the court.
And we're going to see more and more of that, and because it's, there's a lot of wealth being going to be passed by the baby boomers on. And a lot of that's going to happen, and I predict that in the next 10 or 15 years, we're going to see a lot more of those sort of challenges.
Now, when the wills are challenged, when they are done properly by an attorney like yourself, and let's say someone comes into you and says, look, I've had it with my in-laws and my kids. I don't want them to have any of this. I know I had a will in place. I want to come to you, and you're an expert, so you're going to help me change it, and I want to give all this to some charitable cause. And it's very clear. And you've done it all legally right. It seems like the only challenge the family has when they're upset, when they realize they've been written out, is to say he wasn't of his right mind when he did this. If they can prove that he was loopy when he did it, maybe that can make this will, which you've done, that will be done properly and is beyond reproach, is null and void. That's the only way they can do it.
Well,
isn't it?
and of course, it's okay. Did you lack capacity?
Yeah.
When you made out your
coerced?
will.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now, and a good lawyer, should be able to determine, okay, are you, do you have capacity? All right. But there's another thing which is like what I call more insidious, which is called undue influence.
Undue influence.
Okay.
Where you don't.
And is that okay? You come in like. The granddaughter and the grandmother who came into my office. At what point do you go, okay, the influence that each of them has on the other? At what point does that influence, cross over the line into being undue influence?
Okay, so I wonder, on a high-profile case, the late Anna Nicole Smith.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall her, former Playboy centerfold, who married a very, very wealthy man who was at least twice her age.
Right.
And when he passed away, he left much of his large estate to her, and she came very late. And he, of course, had children and everything who challenged the will. And I forget how it played out, but I think his children had some success of getting some of the assets that he was going to give
and
her.
it could have been, I do remember this, not like the details as to, whether that case was tried, did they settle it?
Undue influence or how that...
But see, we all say is, we all influence one another.
Well, sure. So what's undue? I mean,
an undue influence is in the way is that did a person exert such influence on you that your wishes then became their wishes, I guess, so to speak, due to a weak mind or whatever else.
That is a tricky road to hoe.
It really is tricky.
Because let's say the grandkids are out of the picture and everything, and there's some neighbor who for a good 15 or 20 years cared for this elderly person. Never asking for money, and then, well, now there's undue influence because he was showing this neighbor kindness, and when she dies, she leaves everything to him instead of her grandkids who never visited her once. Now, is that undue influence? No. This is a caring neighbor who probably would have done this with or without the money, but was there to help, and then at the end, to his surprise, she leaves him everything.
Now, here's the tricky part.
Is that undue influence?
Well, here's the tricky part, and I'll just invite, we can have this conversation, is that, I've had a case or two where the neighbors come in to see me and are going, okay, we've been taking care of this lady for years. She lives next door, and now her health has declined and she's in the hospital, and, what do we do now? Where we have to, her no family that shows up. We need to find a place for her to live. What are we going to do with her house? What are we going to do about her estate planning? She's told us that she wants to leave everything to us, and we're going, oh, don't worry about it. Spend the money on yourself. Well, now it's here. She's in the hospital, she can't live at home, and this, and the neighbors come to us and go, we want help.
The neighbors instead of her own family.
Right. And so it's like, okay, well, we have to treat that case just like any other case, which is our client is the older person.
Right.
So we go visit her and we go, okay, what do you want to do? Do you have capacity to make a decision? We try to get enough about the history of this.
And is this important? We have to go to the break, but that when you go to visit her and you're finishing this up, and we're going to get to calls, we've got a bunch for you when we come back. I want to just hit on this. When you go, you're making an observation. You're not a psychologist or an expert, but you and maybe one or two of your assistants are there to see her of her own free will, where she seems clear, where after the fact, if there's a legal challenge once she's gone, you could be called to testify that based on your experience, you're saying, listen, I was their judge. My take was that she was lucid to make this decision on her own, and then your assistants could say the same thing, or whoever else, a nurse was in the room, could say the same thing.
Exactly.
And that's pretty strong. You can say, look, you have no dog in this fight. You look.
Yes.
Interesting.
All right. When we get back, I'll tell you a little. Give me 30 seconds, and I'll tell you another thing that we'll do in a case like that.
Good. So we'll do that, and then we'll take a bunch of phone calls. Milton and others, if you're there, we'll get to your calls right after this.